Use barriers like walls, e.g. glory holes. Canadian government. What the fuck? That allow for sexual contact but prevent close face-to-face contact. Oh, this is the BC government health website. BC Center for Disease Control. COVID and sex. Use glory holes. What is happening? So I'm basically just I need to make a video because what is happening? Everything's burning down. It's just like the Canadian government is literally saying to use glory holes. It's the provincial government, but still. And I've just brought up a couple things that, you know, off the top of my head that's been going on that specifically in the US and Canada have just... What even is happening? We'll talk about the Human Rights Tribunal letters. So recently, in Nova Scotia, there were the biggest shooting in Canadian history. It's awful, actually. My condolences to everybody who perished and their families. The shooter, I don't think there was a... Anyway, there's been a call for an investigation, of course, and I'm for it, but in the call for the investigation into what happened and why, I'm on a Huffington Post, by the way. The senators also stressed the inquiry must use a feminist lens. Now, I don't exactly know if the guy was specifically targeted women, but I don't think he did, and I'm not sure why. In their letter Saturday, the senators said not launching the inquiry was fueling speculation among Canadians, that resulting innuendo and gossip puts the public's trust in jeopardy. What? It's just like, why are you using a feminist lens? Here on the star.com, why feminist lens could be the key to understanding the Nova Scotia mass shooting. Like it's like they're gonna understand something and suddenly like, oh, that this website that he found will ban that, or the way that he was raised, are they gonna change like society? Like, what are you investigating with your feminist lens? Because you're gonna, if you're using a specific lens, you're gonna find a determined outcome, or more deterministic outcome, whereas probably gonna be misogynistic, right? Like, there you go. The shooter killed 22 people. Appears to have had a history of violence against women, most specifically his common law spouse. Research shows one of the few common elements between perpetrators of mass shooting is a history of domestic violence. Well, if they're violent, they get with somebody. I understand. Yeah, I guess. But why, like, we know this. What are you investigating? We get the fact that mass shootings and misogyny and femicide are all connected. Is a way of preventing... A feminist lens on the inquiry is a way of preventing these atrocities down the road. What is this? Yeah. Practically, says MacDonald, the feminist perspective would be served first by including it in black and white in the mandate of the inquiry. Then by including on the inquiry panel someone who had a background in feminist analysis and a knowledge of misogyny and femicide. I feel like this is a power play. They're trying to get their people in power or something. That's what it would take to learn needed lessons from the Portapique shooting, said NST co-founder Jean Sarson. Who be you, Jean Sarson? Who be you? Co-founder of non-state torture and a human rights defender based in Canada. Huh. I mean, Wikipedia's not that good. She seems to be uncorrupted by the religion. Born in New Brunswick. Okay. Okay, yeah. So I think she's probably unfortunately being used by this ideology. Hello. A feminist analysis has to acknowledge that misogyny is attached, if you will, to all our perceptions about how Canadian society wants to deal with violence against women, says Sarson. All of our perceptions about how Canadian society wants to deal with violence against women and girls. I mean, all our perceptions about how the Canadian society wants to deal with violence. How will this inquiry impact the future? How will Nova Scotians deal with violence against women and girls? These questions are a bit like freeform and meaningless, I feel like. No assessment, no analysis will bring back those who've died, but in my experience working with those who've been victimized, there are usually two main things they want to know. There are usually two main things they want to know. That is why them? If we don't look at the role of misogyny, the role of violence against women in these early indicators, when we don't take it seriously, then we do a serious injustice to trying to predict how to stop these kinds of patterns from unfolding. I don't understand what you're gonna do. Like, if somebody does violence to a woman, you get arrested and you go to jail. Like, what? Then you have a case anyway. So actually, so another one, the Examiner with a feminist lens, and just so another thing that I was reminded of recently when I was looking through what happened in Canada is this story of. Let's see. So there's a dad in BC that his I forget the gender swap. Heartbroken dad of trans teen breaks gag to beg for end of state-sponsored child abuse. Right. So basically, this father had a biologically female child, and the child decided somebody decided for her, but she said the child, or he, I suppose I should say now, or else I'll get arrested. The child, he said that he wanted to be known as a guy, a male. The father refused, and the BC courts forced him on pain of going to jail to refer to him and to never in public or private refer to his child as a girl. So he basically been gagged, and it's awful. Like, moving my table. Father unable to say anything, and just like the court is pushing this ideology along with the child that's been infected by it. It's disgusting. And like, you can't fight the government. Like, he probably has to work. He just doesn't have time for this crap. And one of the interviews the guy's given, the guy actually had to retract the interview and explain this. I have received a second legal notification of a far more reputable constitution than the first notice as regards to my recent interview with Clark, the father of the transgender child. The letter contained relevant documents, rulings, whose detail I was not aware of. After conversations with legal expert, I have made the decision to comply ahead of the Supreme Court of BC ruling that would likely have been obtained against me, which could have subjected me to a series of costs that I have no position to bear. They basically said, you keep talking about this, you're getting charged. So, I have no control. Anyway. For my part, I have decided to comply to avoid being financially destroyed for conducting journalism, which the province of BC has decided to ban for the time being. Disgusting. This is February 9th, 2020. Now, Bill C-16, an act to amend the Canadian Human Rights Act and the Criminal Code. This was introduced in the 2000, I think it was 2018, the debacle with Jordan Peterson, where he actually went in front of, 2017. Sorry if you can hear that siren. Jordan Peterson went in front of the Senate of Canada and voiced his dissent on the passage of this bill, and it sailed through the Canadian Senate with no amendments. Sorry, I just waited for that siren to pass. So yeah, the bill, after him and another practicing lawyer went to the bench and tried to explain what was going on, and nope, nobody listened to them. So basically what this bill does, and I listened to Viva Frey's video on it, it does eventually make it illegal to misgender somebody. Yes, it's considered you're attacking an identity group, somebody's identity, and that is now associated with it's in the criminal code in the Canadian criminal law. This is the bill. The bill has received royal assent and is now law. This enactment amends the Canadian Human Rights Act to add gender identity and gender expression to the list of prohibited grounds of discrimination. So this bill adds gender identity and gender expression to like sex, age, nationality, ethnicity, all the usual characteristics that you can't discriminate against. It adds them, and it also amends the criminal code to extend the protection against hate propaganda set out in the act to any of the public that is distinguished by gender identity or expression, and to clearly set out that evidence that an offense was motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate based on the gender identity or expression constitute an aggravating circumstance that a court must take into consideration when it imposes a sentence. So the court has to take into offense basically if the offense was motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate on gender identity or expression. Viva Frey does a very thorough explanation, way better than me. He's an actual Montreal lawyer, where I'm just a fucking pleb. So this is where, I finally found it. This is where he explains that Bill C-16 can put you in jail for misgendering. So public incitement or hatred. Everyone who, by communicating statements in any public place, incites hatred against any identifiable groups. So this, any identifiable groups, is basically the ethnicity, not the ethnicity, but yeah, anything that can be you can use to be identified. So your skin color, your accent, probably your fucking everything. I think they have everything in it now, but it includes your gender identity and your what was the other one? Anyway, it includes that. So man, like you can, it's an indictable offense and is liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or an offense punishable on summary conviction. So there it is, Bill C-16. And man, Jordan Peterson fought so hard against this too. Nope. Now let's see. No, this is no good. We did this. Right, so the Ontario Human Rights Commission, every province in Canada has a Human Rights Commission, and these Jordan Peterson said that they're basically the source of a lot of this. I believe that there's been an ideological infection from the academics of the 70s and 60s, the professors that have passed this on into the academia world, and it's slowly been seeping into the media through journalism and well, more journalism, I think, but now it's also started to infect like pop culture and gaming, and it's seeping into every aspect of Western society. And Western society, it's less so in Eastern societies. Like Japan has just none of this, I don't think. Yeah, pretty much they don't have any of this. So homogeneity, right? Anyway, these Ontario Human Rights Commissions, these commissions, human rights commissions, deal in. They were the policy makers that Bill C-16 took and added to the law. So it's where all the basically the vague terminologies come from, allowing a lot of things to come in. Now, the reason I made this video is actually because, and I don't know if people know, but right now, Portland, the federal courthouse in Portland, I don't know if they say here, it's been under siege, a literal medieval siege for about like 55 days. As midnight approached on Monday, more than 1,000 protesters had gathered outside the federal courthouse. Some amongst the crowd attempted to tear down barricades outside the courthouse and gain entry, taunting the police inside. Others in the group formed a shield wall to fend off any non-lethal ammunition. A man climbed up the protective barricade, taunted the officer inside. From Andy No, a good journalist. So people are like literally trying to breach the courthouse, and they did. They went in. One guy, I think, hit a federal officer with a hammer, and it's like this siege has been going on, and the federal authorities, Trump sent in finally, I think it was Barr actually that did, but sent in some well, no, they didn't even send them in. Like, they were inside, and they finally gave the okay, I think, to go on and stop them from setting fire to the courthouse, and they instantly got labeled as an occupying force. You know, the feds are not an occupying force; they're in their own federal building with the. And so the cognitive dissonance, the lies have been so obvious that this must be like awakening so many people. This is what really got me. Like, I've been listening to Tim Pool a lot, a YouTube commentator and a political analyst. Well, not political analyst, political commentator and cultural commentator and analyst, and he's been talking about this a lot, and it's been going on for 2 months now. Literally 2 months, and of the city refusing to allow the feds to like remove the protesters, refusing to remove the protesters themselves. So the state is going against the federal government. Like, if it's not like a civil conflict, what do you call this, right? And everybody calls them protesters. Even I did, I think, but they're not protesters. They literally burned down. They found a body in a 2-month-old burned down like Seattle building today or yesterday. It's been there for 2 months because nobody could get there because the cops were overwhelmed by the rioters. Like, they're not protesting. It's horrible. Anyway, yeah, it's basically, I'm gonna stop it here. I was gonna talk about the Lindsay Shepherd affair, but again, like, she was brought in through a tribunal by basically a freaking social justice inquisitor. She showed her students, she was a teaching assistant, she showed her undergrad students a video of Jordan Peterson debating an issue. She got hauled in, threatened with jail by these non-law officers, like this teacher and a supervisor or something, and like a social justice advocate or a representative, or like they have a diversity and equity a diversity and equity office in every university now, I think, and even in the military. Religion is terrifying, but that officer that's working for the Inquisition basically threatened her and said, "You're violating like human rights." You know, you can see in the thumbnail. You violated the policy on gendered and sexual violence policy. She's ridiculous. Just because she showed a video of Jordan Peterson talking on YouTube. Anyway, I'll leave this mishmash of ideas here. I just had a lot on my mind, and I needed to get it out. A lot of stuff is happening in Canada, and I know the last one is in the States, Seattle, but it's, like it or not, we are kind of downstream a bit from the US. They are affecting our culture, and I don't got, big cities are going down, man. Like with the COVID, like It's bad. It's bad. It's getting less and less popular. Everybody's emigrating. It's getting more expensive anyway. People are gonna leave the big cities. It's gonna be decentralization, man. As long as everybody has their solar powers and their minivans, we're good to go. Talk to you guys later.